I can't tell you how honored we are to have, on my left, Mayor Greg Stanton, on my right, Senator John McCain, who's really honored us with their presence here today. As we're going to launch Arizona as the first state in the nation to really take on this challenge that we now launched since January of the Cancer Moonshot 2020. Governor Ducey could not be with us today. Unfortunately, he's presenting in Washington, and maybe if we could just play a welcome address from Governor Ducey.
Hello, and on behalf of our great state, I want to thank you for bringing Arizona to the front lines of one of our nation's most crucial battles. And while I wish I could join you in person today, I'm proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in the fight against cancer. There's not an individual among us who hasn't been touched by cancer in some way. So I'm incredibly proud that Arizona is the first state in the country to support the innovative, historic, and life-saving efforts of Moonshot 2020 and Pediatric Moonshot 2020. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank my friend, Dr. Patrick Soon-Chung, who once again has brought his adopted state to the forefront of curbing cancer's harmful effects. And I also want to recognize the incredible collaborative efforts of our very own state universities, our state-of-the-art healthcare facilities and cancer treatment centers, and all the great Arizona individuals and institutions working together to win the war against cancer. Thank you for your commitment and partnership in this crucial cause, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, Governor Ducey. I think what I would like to do very quickly is to present really the challenges we face in this nation with cancer. And as some of you know, we launched this program in January, and then Vice President Biden has been appointed by President Obama to lead this initiative. The challenge I want to present to us is information that we've only learned, and I've been pursuing this now since we actually launched Abraxane in Phoenix, with the knowledge that, in fact, we've been living under illusion, and it's a very scary illusion, and that's why we've lost this war. The illusion is when cancer occurred, there was this one mutation in this founder cell, and it was a single clone. And if we nuked it, if we gave it everything we had and did this carpet chemical warfare against this cancer with a indiscriminate bombing, hopefully we'll kill the cell and minimize the amount of toxic damage. But we trained on this whole theory of maximum tolerated dose, all of us in this room. I was talking to some of the pediatricians last night about how they have to give intrathecal injection of high-dose chemotherapy and not try to damage the brain. If that was the correct theory, then that it was a single clone, we would have won the war on cancer. To our horror, what we've discovered that there's not just one population, two populations, three populations, four populations, five, multiple populations of these clones. So what we have now is these multiple clones of cells, and cancer is a multiclonal disease. Some clones asleep, some clones awake. That's a theory that is not a theory any longer. We just presented this at San Antonio Breast Cancer. University of Washington had the courage to say, we're going to test this by taking women with triple-negative breast cancer, and we're going to do biopsies in multiple sites, the same patient, the same day. So this patient on day 0 had biopsies, and there were different clones depending which site you had. The patient had the treatment, and then on day 7, this is what happened. The clones changed. On day 125, they changed again, 194 again, and unfortunately, she passed away on day 250. So we have this multiple clonal disease, this monster that's changing constantly. And in 2014, this paper got published that we have this illusion of clonal dominance. The country moved towards targeted therapy because we said targeted therapy would take away toxic chemotherapy. Unfortunately now it has been thought that targeted therapy is an inevitable failure. that resistance is a fait accompli. The time to recurrence is simply the interval required for the subclone to repopulate the lesion. And whenever I give this talk, the same deathly silence occurs in a room like this because it looks like we have no hope. Except we do have hope. We have amazing hope. Because if the idea is there's multiple clones, the enemy then is these clones. And what we need now is battlefield awareness and complete counterintelligence. And I use these terms, Senator, because I was trying to find a way to explain it in a way that this is a war, not a battle. When we've been giving chemotherapy and seeing the mask go down, we're all excited. But we've won the battle and lost the war because as we actually induce the chemotherapy, the clones go and run and hide and come back again. So we have to take a whole new world at this, and this is an unfortunate paper in New England Journal of Medicine with the patient with BRAF mutation. And Novartis and all the companies are now developing these targeted therapies, and they're miracles, because this is what happens with the targeted therapy. However, if that miracle was true, and if it was a single clone, that's where we cured cancer, and unfortunately in 9 weeks, this is what happens. So we've taken 9 years now, the entire nation, the entire country, the NIH, all our money, every pharmaceutical company have invested billions going down the wrong assumption. And that's a very difficult thing. This is from the website of Novartis. Here is the targets they're tracing, this target, that target, that target, that target, that target. These are all multi-targeted therapies, billions and billions of drugs. So if that's the case, then we should be able to target that cell. So the idea was we go target the cell, and we go target that clone, except to our surprise, here's another cell in the same patient with a different clone. What do we target? And yet another cell, and what do we target? So the big problem is we've been targeting a battle of a single cell when in fact we need to actually treat the host. What do I mean by that? Cancer now, I recognize, I believe, and I think many other people join me in that belief, is in fact a normal evolution of human physiology, that we have that in our body, but we have our body's own protective mechanism called the host, our immune system. So if you look at that and just attacking the cell, that's one strategy, but what if there's another strategy where we actually look at the cell within the body of the host and attack the host? Because the cancer cell has hijacked every mechanism of cell growth in your human body. We need to understand the hijackers and hijack the hijackers and land this plane. So what it turns out is that we can go around and go after these targets as what we call targeted therapy, but it's much more complex than that. We need to go to the surface and identify what's on the surface and kill the cells, but it's more complicated than that. We need to go into the host and go right through the blood vessel and get into, so we can get to the cell called the dendritic cell, because that is the cell that you and I are born with, that protects us from the flu, influenza, actually the cell that educates other T cells. But then we need to go to the T cells, which are the killer T cells that you and I have that actually kills the cancer, but the cancer's put those cells to sleep. It's put the dendritic cell to sleep. We then have a natural killer cell. The natural killer cell is 300 million years old. The natural killer cell you and I are born with that actually waits around for any infected cell, any cancer cell. We are producing cancer cells as we're sitting here in this room, but the body has its own natural protection to recognize it and kill it. Then we have, however, the suppressor cell. So what the cancer cell has done is activated the suppressor cell to put the other two cells to sleep. The suppressor cell is necessary, otherwise we'd get autoimmune disease. So it's hijacked, the suppressor cell is hijacked the killer cell, hijacked the dendritic cell, hijacked a natural killer cell. And so our chance is to find a way where we can take chemotherapy and get it into this tumor microenvironment, and that's why I built Abraxane. Abraxane is a particle that actually gets through the blood vessel wall into the tumor, into the microenvironment, and starts stressing those cells. And then we could give low-dose radiation, and then we can give combination and activate all those cells simultaneously. What does that mean? It means we need battlefield awareness. How do we get battlefield awareness? How do we actually take all of this complexity, reduce it to an action, reduce it to a trial, and push forth a hypothesis that we've been going down the wrong pathway for 40 years. How do we unteach major institutions? How do we go to the NIH, and how do we go to the major cancer centers of our country and says, we've not won the war because we've gone down the wrong assumption? It's a huge struggle. So my challenge, I took on this challenge and said for the last 5 years, 10 years, says I'm going to create what we have called battlefield awareness. So you have the tumor cell, and I'm not going to give you a science lesson, but the only way I can do it is through a science lesson, is say, we've been treating us with radiotherapy, chemotherapy, monoclonal antibody therapy, hormonal therapy, target therapy, checkpoint immunotherapy. These are all the therapies that we have now. But amazingly, nobody asks the very fundamental question, where are we treating and which piece of the cell are we treating? Are we treating it in the nucleus where all the DNA resides? Are we treating it in the cytoplasm where all these proteins occur? Are we treating it at the cell membrane, or are we treating it at the receptor? Because if we're doing targeted therapy, we need to treat all these proteins. If we're doing monoclonal antibody therapy, we want to treat the receptor. We want to do chemotherapy, we're treating the nucleus. But we have no knowledge of battlefield awareness until now, and that's what we're launching today. Because that means we can now measure the 20,000 genes and 3 billion base pairs that measure what's going on inside the nucleus. That's called DNA. Unfortunately, guess what we're doing in our nation today? We are running around on a panel test with 1/100th of the whole genome, called 500 genes, when we need to measure 20,000 genes. If we measure the 20,000 genes, that just told us about the nucleus. So what about the proteins that go above, that are made from these 20,000 genes? That's called RNA. Well, we need to measure the entire RNA. If we measure the DNA and the RNA, this protein network that's altered, we'd be able to know. If we knew the protein network that was altered, we then could measure the receptor in a quantifiable way. So the DNA, RNA, protein, and protein network, that's the test we just launched called the GPS Cancer. That's the test that Independence Blue Cross, for the first time in January, approved commercial payment. That's the test that's giving us battlefield awareness. But think about the enormity of this test. It's taking 20,000 genes times 3 billion base pairs times 200,000 RNA times 10 million proteins times 10,000 pathways to get to that one. The supercomputing infrastructure we need to put in place, we took 10, I met with Senator McCain many years ago and showed him at the National Lambda Rail. We're going to put fiber infrastructure. I came to Phoenix. We put a supercomputer into Phoenix. We then ran supercomputers around the country. We now have 800,000 miles of fiber moving data at 7 to 6 terabits a second, which can enable us to do this compute for every patient in real time. If we can do that, then we would then have truly an opportunity for battlefield awareness. Well, what would that do for us? Well, interestingly enough, there's this thing, the cell called the natural killer cell in our body, that if we just tweak the cancer cell just a little bit, don't kill it, stress it, and induce a receptor so the natural killer cell can recognize it, we have an opportunity then to give patients low-dose chemotherapy as an outpatient, low dose. Instead of 260 milligrams of Braxane, 50 milligrams of Braxane. Now that is not only counterintuitive, it's maybe a little disruptive to pharma. But I think we must take that on because our job in healthcare is to care. So you can now also give low-dose radiation. One of the first things we're going to do is head and neck cancer and avoid these horrific side effects. If you do a low-dose radiation and low-dose chemotherapy in the form what I call metronomic. So I filed those patents in 2005. They all got issued. They're now owned by Celgene. That by giving low-dose chemotherapy, you could then have a way of activating the natural killer cell. But now we have these dendritic cells and the T cells. So imagine if you could give a vaccine with a subcutaneous injection to activate the dendritic cell and you give a subcutaneous injection of a thing called IL-15 that grows the NK cells, and you give a checkpoint inhibitor, which is the famous thing today, to stop the brakes, take the brakes off the T cell. 3 subcutaneous injections at Walmart. Get 3 subcutaneous injections. And then we give you a blood transfusion of natural killer cells that we can grow in an unlimited supply. That is our moonshot. Our moonshot then is if we now change forever the care of cancer patients by doing the GPS and getting complete battlefield awareness down to the receptor, down to the attomolar level in real time, getting this thing called the new epitope, these mutations that we've now chased, put it into a adenovirus, a little virus that actually can then go into the dendritic cell and activate the dendritic cell, give yourself a blood transfusion and drive what I call the memory cell. You drive the memory cell, you've driven then long-term remission and potentially to the cure. So this is not theoretical. This dendritic cell, this adenovirus, these mutations, we can now find in real time called neoepitopes. We can now place this neoepitope into this the viral vaccine and literally inject it subcutaneously, and it will activate the dendritic cells. It's completed phase 2s. It's been worked at NCI. Senator, we are now working on this for the Zika virus. We are putting the Zika virus right into that, and it is a mechanism for us now to very rapidly take anybody's neoepitopes, everybody's neoepitopes, and completely personalize an injection for cancer. The next thing is this blood transfusion. You and I are endowed by these cells called the natural killer cells that float around in our body. And what they seek is any cells that are stressed. And this NKG2D receptor blocks on and then immediately releases its armamentarium called perforin and granzymes, where basically bullets that explode the cell. Which means we need to activate this NKG2D receptor, and we can activate that with low-dose chemotherapy. Any cell that's infected, HPV, EBV, hepatitis, and what it does, it literally locks on and explodes the cell. Which means we need to understand this, what we call the immune synapse. What are these receptors? We need to teach that NK cell where to go. Again, battlefield awareness. We need that counterintelligence in real time. It will then bring the T cells. So where are we with this technology? We are now in phase 2s. So here is a breast cancer cell with this thing called the HER2 antigen. Today we give the patient a thing called Herceptin. The Herceptin binds, but it doesn't kill. How Herceptin kills is your body's natural killer cell binds to that Herceptin and releases. But it requires this receptor called CD16. Only 10% of the human population have a CD16 receptor on the natural killer cell. That means 90% of women will not have the efficacy of Herceptin. We've now engineered a natural killer cell with this high affinity NK, we call it a HANK. And here is this HANK given to a patient, HER2 positive breast cancer cell with Herceptin. It locks onto that Herceptin, puts in the granzymes, and explodes it. That has now been given to patients with multiple myeloma, relapsed stem cell, complete remission. She's allowed us to give her name out now. You can look on the website, Lisa Ray. We've given a patient with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, gotten these cells, now in 8 years remission. The opportunity, however, to arm these cells, basically target them by putting this GPS knowledge onto the cell, and allowing it not to touch the normal cell, and yet destroy only the positive HER2 positive cell, and indeed allowed to be a serial killer, is real. We are now going to in phase 2, phase 3 trials. So the opportunity to take these cells and grow them in an unlimited supply in a blood bag and distribute them is now real. That's why I'm running around this nation looking for manufacturing facilities. And in Phoenix, we just took over 7 acres to do that. We should become the American Red Cross of cancer, literally for the world, by literally growing these red blood cells. Capacity is going to be an issue. Let me just give you a little bit of the reality of the patient that I'm now treating and still alive.
My doctor, and it was determined that I had pancreatic cancer, which was, devastating. Anything would have been better than that. I started getting chemotherapy, and through that first year, a spot showed up on my liver. And once a spot shows up on your liver, then you are stage 4. I'm 51. I have twin 11-year-old boys, Aiden and Ben. They are active in sports, and so most of my free time is spent with them. So the chemotherapy drugs I was using, I was bald, and I'm a person who doesn't really want my life to be wrapped around cancer. There's no way it can't be, because it's such a, it's such a monster. It's just like sitting on your shoulders all the time. So I started to look for other drugs to take, and my doctor told me about Abraxane. Abraxane was a chemotherapy drug that was used for breast cancer, but that it had very good success and a lot of success with pancreatic cancer. It was still chemotherapy. I still lost all my hair. I still lost my eyebrows, my eyelashes. It was still very difficult. I had lots of side effects, but it was working incredibly well. I was on chemotherapy, Abraxane, along with other drugs, for a total of 4 years out of 6 years that I've had pancreatic cancer. And I stopped a few months ago. I'm in remission. There's no evidence of cancer. I am cancer-free. I am in remission and have been for over a year. The most important thing is truly, honestly, I tell people I get these phone calls from random people that, my brother has pancreatic cancer, my uncle does, my neighbor, can they talk to you, whatever. And immediately within 10 minutes, I just want to say, you should bring up Abraxane with your doctor. If it wasn't for Abraxane, if it wasn't for taking that drug, I would not be here right now. I'm grateful for every meal that I have with my kids, for every time we do anything. And all of that, is basically because I'm no longer have pancreatic cancer. I'm a walking miracle, literally. It's like I am one of the people that slipped through the eye of the needle.
And the question is why? So the question is why it is about Abraxane, but not about Abraxane. So she was one of the very, very first few patients. It's because I believe we went into the tumor microenvironment and activated her natural killer cells. She had one of the lowest doses. She didn't even have the benefit of all these other things we're doing now, natural killer cells, dendritic cells, PD-L1 inhibitors. She's alive today, still. So my challenge is we need to not only expand this, we need to bring this, we need to validate this, we need to bring the entire country alongside with us. This can't be done by any one organization. This is not about a drug. This is not about a company. This is about changing our whole paradigm and wrestling, with dogma. I said dogma is going to be the largest impediment to the advance in cancer. I'm known as a maverick, and I think senator, you may be known as a maverick, so we fellow mavericks here. But so what we decided to do is we're going to launch the Moonshot. And if I may, in this last video, just play what we're trying to do.
What you do, or where you come from. It has battled us for centuries, bringing us heartache time and again. And we fought back in every way we could, with surgery, drugs, radiation, and chemotherapy, and most recently with vaccines and immunotherapies. We've celebrated victories, but suffered even more losses. And while everyone has given their all, it hasn't been enough. Cancer is complicated. It's rarely the result of one mutation in one bad cell. Most cancers come from multiple mutations and have multiple clones, some awake, some asleep. One therapeutic approach aimed at one problem will not get the job done. And ravaging the body with toxic therapies is not the answer. Multiple solutions must be applied, orchestrated across time and space through the patient's life. And as we choose them, we must remember that each person's cancer is different. The treatment for one person's lung cancer may not work on another's, but it may help treat someone else's breast cancer. We know more about cancer than ever before. We've mapped the human genome, explored beyond genes to the proteins that define them, and we've refined our understanding of the immune system. It's time to leverage all our knowledge and technology to radically change the way we treat cancer. Just as we once dared to take aim at the moon and we conquered its impossibility, today we dare again. We are proud to launch Cancer Moonshot 2020, a 4-year-long race to subdue cancer by the start of the next decade. To succeed, we will need unprecedented commitment and coordination. So we've created an unprecedented alliance to accelerate access to next-generation immunotherapy cancer care. Pharmaceutical companies, academic and research institutions, government agencies, NGOs, technology companies, insurance companies, physicians are all part of it. Together, we will create and manage QUILT, the quantitative, integrative, lifelong trial in patients with cancer. QUILT will involve diagnosing and sequencing more than 100,000 patients, ultimately assigning 20,000 patients to next-generation immunotherapy care, targeting 20 different types of cancer. Pharmaceutical companies will share their novel and approved drugs and research. Government agencies will design trial protocols and reduce the red tape that has slowed progress over time. The National Cancer Institute, leading cancer centers, and community oncologists will serve as clearinghouses for the trials and validate the science. Doctors will recruit patients and provide treatments. Insurance companies will pay for doctors to provide treatment and collect valuable data. And a secure web-based portal will connect all to the massive coordinated effort through a national storehouse of information. The ultimate goal is a vaccine-based immunotherapy tailored to the unique tumor signature of individual patients, a new approach to cancer by the year 2020. We're aiming for the moon again. We dare to conquer the impossible again.
I remember a meeting with Senator McCain and showing him what I call the rocket ship. And he asked me for that copy. And I think my person was there. I said, no. We did not want to. At that point, we weren't ready. And that was many, many years ago. In 2014, I held a conference in Oxford where I brought all these pharma companies together. In 2015, Vice President Biden invited me to the White House in October, where I gave him the moonshot. In 2015, in December, he invited us all to the Naval Observatory, and I explained to him what we're going to do, and by January we announced it. So I'm now completely convinced, with Vice President Biden, been given at least the charge, that this is not a Democratic thing or a Republican thing. This is an American thing. We have an opportunity to lead. And I can't be more proud to have Senator McCain here with us to present to us really what we will do and introduce after that point the members of the nation of leading pediatric oncologists who are here with us today to support that cause. So Senator McCain, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Doctor. And I must say I'm a bit humbled in the presence of these individuals who are, except the mayor, of course, that have done so much for so many people for so long. Your contributions have been enormous, and this coalition is really incredible. And I'd like to give a great deal of credit to our Vice President, Joe Biden, who has been integral in this effort for a long time. I'm very honored to be in your company. Thank you for this coalition, which can save untold thousands of lives, or millions actually, over time. And what you're doing is really remarkable. As Dr. Sanchung mentioned, that 4 years ago he showed me a diagram of this rocket ship. I was impressed at the time, but I must say I had no idea that you would be able to assemble a coalition literally with the best minds in this nation to attack this really terrible disease. I'm one of those who is a survivor, and I'm very grateful. I thank God every day. But I also would point out that the cancer I was afflicted with, melanoma, is on the rise throughout this country, and especially in our home state of Arizona, where there's so much exposure to sun. In fact, I've lost so many votes because when I see a young child without a hat or gloves or long sleeve shirt on, I go over and yell at the mother, and that has cost me a great deal of support and votes, you know. And shut up, you old geezer, you know. I mean, and I'm also proud that Arizona State University and Phoenix Children's Hospital are again on the cutting edge. We're very proud here in Arizona, and we're very proud of many of the things that Arizona State University has done as well. But I'm really proud on behalf of Arizona to join the mayor of Phoenix, who we are very good friends. He's in the wrong party, but we have gotten over that over time. But I'm glad to join the mayor and others to be the first state to join this historic game-changing initiative that is bringing this incredibly promising technology and science that we have seen to date. And by the way, Dr. Patrick, I would like to mention that I finished 5th from the bottom of my class at the Naval Academy, but I was able to understand that presentation, so I'd like to thank you for bringing it down to the simplest terms. So we're very happy to be here, but this is really remarkable what you're doing, and you're not only doing it for present generations, but for the future, not only here in the United States of America, but in the world. So I'm grateful and humbled. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Senator. I'd like to ask then Mayor Stanton to say a few words, even though Senator says it's on the left side versus the right side.
Well, thank you, Dr. Patrick. And I was so excited to be here until I heard Senator McCain's comments, his slight digs. It's really an honor, and I can't tell you as mayor of this great city how proud I am that Phoenix, our city, is the first city to support and join the Cancer Moonshot 2020 and Pediatric Moonshot 2020 effort. This is a game-changing and life-saving announcement that you are making here today in our city. But of course, Moonshot 2020 is a national effort. But ground zero, the epicenter, is right here in Phoenix, with incredible partnerships with Phoenix Children's Hospital, led by Bob Meyer, NantWorks, Arizona State University, led by Dr. Michael Crow, and of course the city of Phoenix. And it couldn't happen without these outstanding leaders. The work that Dr. Crow is doing, leading ASU into such a national and international outstanding reputation. Bob Meyer leading, I know we have representatives of some of the finest children's hospitals in the United States and across the globe here, but we got the best in Phoenix. Phoenix Children's Hospital. Bob Meyer, what you and your team have done, moving Phoenix Children's Hospital from an outstanding hospital, but now ranked at the very top of children's hospitals around the country, is a credit to you, and you have brought honor and prestige to our city. The foundation for a lot of the work that is happening today, of course, began many years ago in Phoenix. We made a commitment to bioscience. The voters of Phoenix made a commitment to bioscience in the Phoenix Biomedical Campus. And Mayor Gordon, who is here and has been working so hard to help put this together, he and I had a chance to work on that together. Back then, it had a few skeptics, those who couldn't see the possibilities, but we could. And those dividends for those early investments are paying off today. And it's in part, a small part, but a part about what led to this incredible announcement here in our city today. A partnership among the city, Arizona State University, NantWorks, will advance a $500 million project to expand the Phoenix Biomedical Campus. And of course, it'll be home to the Chan Shu-Chong Institute for Molecular Medicine. We're very proud of that as well, Doctor. That institute will give life to so many. It's expected to create nearly 1,000 jobs right here in Phoenix. So I know your partnership with Phoenix, your investment here is announcing today Moonshot, but it goes well beyond that. And I am a very, very grateful mayor, and anything we can do to support this effort, we are there for you 100%. Thank you, Dr. Patrick Soon-Chong.
Thank you so much.